So this issue's power meter aggregate was 63.17%. Relative to all the Nintendo Power issues to date with power meters, it is below par. The average has been 67.02 to this point. The highest was Star Tropics at 78.5%. That's not true, though. Actually, TMNT was 80-something. So that's incorrect. The lowest is a three-way tie. We have Supercars, War on Wheels, and Wayne Gretzky all came in at a dismal 50.5%. And to give you some context on that, Supercars and War Wheels are two of the ones that never got released. So, again, that kind of supporting that whole idea of the grading team sculpting the NES landscape by hand for us.
Man, they stack ranking, like if you're below this line, you will get cut off.
Yeah, into the volcano you go. So now we're bringing to the nominations. I think you might have went first last time, so I'll rattle off I got 4 this time around. TMNT 2, of course. Kabuki Quantum Fighter, I think also, of course. Maniac Mansion is one I kind of want to push here. Had those Counselor Corner appearances, and I still think I think it's a really fun story world that I would love to jam on for a few weeks and of course, pot about. And then the last one, I thought just from kind of a scientific perspective, the Cryon Quest. That Mega Man ripoff. I think it would be super interesting. Because, dude, here's the catch with that. Like, no, it's not as good as Mega Man, but because it is such a hard ripoff, it's the best Vic Tokai game by like a mile. And I would just be curious to see how it goes. You know what I mean? I just would be super curious to see how much time it spends. I feel like it's a science project. I feel so from a curiosity perspective, that's what brings that to the table. So I'd be curious to hear your thoughts on that. But those are my 4. So give us yours, and then we'll go from there.
Fair. I had a tough time this episode because I feel like I played a lot of the hotness so much before. So I went with Star Tropics, just out of respect for it, and then Solstice, also. Get the fuck out of this. And then Teenage Mutant Ninja Turtles 2, the arcade game, naturally. So obviously we have the overlap there with that hotness. I could maybe consider this ridiculous science project of nonsense, but yeah,
I'm trying to think. What are they actually? Let's do some quick back of the napkin research here.
Because for me, like Kabuki Fighter, it's a good game, but I feel like I've played it thoroughly, so I don't know how interesting that would be. Like,
That's fair.
I think it's a good game though, not. You know,
there is. I mean, again, I think it felt a little better because of those enhanced mechanics, but there is some certain semi-recent redundancy with Shadow the Ninja that I can certainly hear and understand, not wanting to fucking revisit. Okay, yeah, it's a 6.3, 56% from the critics, 395. On the NES on the whole on Moby Games, so yeah, it's pretty bad. I guess maybe the science, maybe the downside of the reality outweighs the benefits of the curiosity on that. That's why we have 2 people to keep this podcast on course. Okay, so I hear the Kabuki criticism. Cryon Conquest is probably a little wacky. TMNT 2 is an obvious overlap. I still Maniac Mansion though, dude. Talk to me about what's your flavor on Maniac Mansion? You said you picked it up and like really jammed on it that first time, I think.
Yeah, I picked it up because I was like, I don't know. It's just one of those titles that I only would see the art for, and ignore it because it was always, a push title. But I'm looking at Mario 3 and other titles, that I wanted to play. So. Yeah, it wasn't bad. It was just different, It's like, I don't know, computer game. You're playing on the NES. You're moving around. I'm not like, what are we doing?
So different.
I don't know. So I guess I don't really think about it. I didn't even really think about it too much.
Well, let's get a feature here. Yeah, this is me plucking it out of that Counselor's Corner love they gave it for sure. So yeah, they didn't get a feature here. We're long past that. Yeah, I don't know. And again, I'm fucking the. I sit and think about like how are we gonna. I guess the format we kind of talked through that. Maybe that's how we pique our interest on it. Is like maybe what it would be is like we pick our 3 characters, and obviously we each have Dave. There's no avoiding that. So like our 2 ancillary characters, we can kind of just talk through their tracks of how they play, how their story, because that's what it is. Each character has their own kind of flowchart to being beneficial to getting through the game, and they're so unique, each one. And the stuff you experience, the problems you have to solve, all that is unique. So each, assuming we didn't have the same parties anyways, each one would have its own unique track to kind of just talk about, and they would kind of be like monologues basically, with some commentary from the other person about maybe some overlap with things in their character storylines. But that would be an interesting format, I think, for a podcast too. Is just kind of like we're just gonna like we're gonna tell a story for each character. We're just gonna kind of give like a sit down at the campfire and tell a story. And the story is so crazy that I think it's kind of interesting.
I mean, I will say, yeah, I have. Like, if we played Ninja Turtles 2, I will beat it immediately and probably end up playing it just multiple times. You know what I mean? I don't know.
Right.
Like, there were, at least for me specifically, because I played it so many freaking times.
Well, same for me. And honestly, when I sit and think about that, yeah. When we kind of said it when we were talking about the game. Again, not to criticize. Like, it's a great game. I love it. But what are we going to talk about? Jump kicking every one of the bosses. Like, what are we going to, you know what I mean? Like, I guess, again, we would spend time on the IP, but we also kind of just did that with the first, that was a banger of an episode, but we kind of covered all the bases on the IP stuff. So we would be redundant as fuck, maybe. And a lot of the shit we would talk about, it's not like there's anything new story-wise. Like we're not into a new realm of storytelling with TMNT or anything from the first game to the arcade game. So as much fun as the game would be, shit to talk about that would be unique and interesting for a podcast perspective, I don't know how much there would be that wouldn't, again, just be repeating ourselves. So that's kind of scary.
Yeah. I mean, that's a good point. I mean, some of the follow-ups, 3 and 4, have even more varied moveset,
right,
than the arcade game specifically does. So I could see that.
Yeah. And also, those, when we get to those, we're a little. I guess there is more for the Nintendo, and I don't even know about those. So those would be playing anew too. So that, you have familiarity with them, but I would be more on board for those because I don't have any familiarity with them. So that would be more interesting for me from just a gameplay standpoint. And I assume they're all couch co-op games too. So that the thing that we really want from this game, that cooperative TMNT vibe, we can get from those games, and maybe have a little more to talk about too.
Yeah, because I'd be playing it likely with my son or something. Like I wouldn't be playing. I'd be like, hey, jump up and let's play through this kind of thing.
Well, that's my pitch. It's your baby. I'm not going to kill it if you don't want to, but I think that's my pitch for trying to get us on Maniac Mansion and doing something a little interesting and different.
Man, thinking through it, yeah. I was definitely prepared. Ninja Turtles too, like that's what's happening. But yeah, when I think about it, like, yeah, I'm going. It's been a while since I played this specific one, but I do know it very well. Even when I was playing with the kids when we first got the Cowabunga collection a couple months ago, like, yeah, it's so fun though. It's always fun to play. It's always fun to play.
We can still play the game, Jay. We can do a couch co-op of a game. We talk about doing it all the time and never do. Maybe we should. Like 2 people that have been married for too long and they have to set their sex dates. Same idea. Like, yes, it seems a little
updates.
Yeah, it seems a little inorganic and overly structured, but maybe that's just what life requires in order to get things done. So, maybe that's what we should do is have a weekly time slot to do this. Yeah, and obviously we can fill it in the weeks where we have game app stuff to deal with that game, but also hit these things that we kind of fly by. There's been a hand. Maybe honestly, that's another list I can start since I love starting fucking lists. It's just couch co-op sessions that we haven't, we wanted to do, and for whatever reason didn't happen because of the game app flow or whatever it might be. That might be a cool list to start as well, and I can start it with this game.
I think that's fair. I'd be willing. Like, I don't know how big of a game Maniac Mansion is. Like, that concerns me.
It's a game. I mean, honestly,
but
it's the kind of thing. Like I said, it's nowhere near side questy. It is a little limbo-y and could easily maybe fall into the kill quest episode side of it. But like, if you know what you're doing, which I don't, you probably of course you don't, right? Yeah. But you could. I mean, you could probably beat the game in like fucking like 11 minutes or something if you. If, not even that, maybe if you know all the steps, because it is so much. It's one of those games. It's old school point and click mindset in that you don't necessarily die. You get thrown in the prison. The dungeon prison of the house. So it's not death, but it's the same concept of like, that didn't work, come back and try a different approach kind of thing, So that's where the length of the game comes from, is just literally trial and error, or hopefully educated trial and error, not just random trial and error, but just trying things and again, combining items a little bit at times, which is not the best thing maybe necessarily, but I think the game does it pretty tactfully, and is certainly, like I said, so quirky, and the characters are so fun and interesting that you'll be entertained even at the failures. And I think that is where a lot of the fun comes in, is that they do a good job of having you enjoy your failure. And it's maybe even strongest pitch, to be honest with you, is that even when things aren't going well, you're still entertained, and that is a great video game core thing, I think.
That's fine. I'm sitting here thinking, like, counterpoint. I do have both the arcade version of Ninja Turtles 2 and the NES version of that on that Cowabunga collection, so I could legitimately play them both and like see how I feel differently.
We're not. I mean, you could, I guess. Yes, that's.
I mean, I could just do that.
That's, you can also do that. I mean, I was gonna say, like, we're not playing arcade games here. That's not what we're about. But I do, that game in particular. It is like this revolutionary bringing of the arcade onto the NES. Maybe that makes sense as like a scientific thing that fits into kind of what we're doing here. But I mean, other than those two stages, obviously, I really don't know.
No, I think we should go with Maniac Mansion, because I think even when, like I said, when we tried it out, I started playing this, and we talked about it at the time. Like, I started playing it with my son, the NES version, playing 2, and then I realized, if I do the arcade one, my other son can play as well, since that's 4-player. You know what I mean? Like, they keep that functionality the same. So it's like, I've actually kind of done that experiment already, when I think back. So it's, let's go Maniac Mansion.
Okay, word. That's fun. That was the one on this list. Well, I guess not as bad as I thought we'd be debating between Kabuki and Teenage Mutant Ninja Turtles pretty hard. I did not expect Maniac Mansion to end up in the real conversation, so I'm kind of excited about that.
It's a good game. I've played it.
And it has that great mag feature too to help you out. So because of the nature of it, I think there is. I mean, you played it a little bit, so you're not totally cold going into it. But having that mag feature to work from and get you going and help you through maybe some of the puzzle, because it is like it's its own Lucasfilm games of their own style of even puzzle. I would say, it's like. It's a certain kind of mental approach to things that maybe is not the most intuitive. So having the magazine feature, like a really substantial one, to kind of grease the wheels for you, I think is a cool thing too. That'll be helpful and totally fair to employ into your play. So, nice. All right, word. That's exciting. I'm very pleased to be knocking that off as a game up here. So we'll play that next,